people don't need to hear about Christ. They've heard enough. They need to see Christ. And if you
Three, two, one, action. Hey guys, welcome back to Keeping It 99, the most edifying podcast in the world. And I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Mr. David Iskander. Thank you, David, for coming onto the podcast.
Of course, thank you, Isaiah.
I know you're a very busy man, so appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come on.
Thank you for coming down to Nashville.
Yeah. So my first question for you is, you are a priest kid. Your dad was a priest, so kind of talk to me what it's like growing up as a priest kid. What are kind of some of the pressures and stuff that go along with that lifestyle?
So it's a very interesting life, to say the least. And for me, I really don't have much to compare to because my dad was ordained when I was like a month and a half old. So I don't have much to compare to. But I will say this, my parents tried their best to give us as much of a normal life as possible. But obviously, people don't give you that chance as much. But I will say this, my dad was very adamant about making sure that we weren't treated any differently than anyone else or shown partiality or given special privileges for anything. And a story that actually comes to my mind about this, that one of the servants told me, and I remember part of it, but I was 6 when it happened. When I first got ordained a chainter, in the middle of the week during the summer, I would come to liturgy and I would serve because there's nobody there. So I remember it was 2 older guys and a kid my age and myself serving inside. And my dad started realizing that the older deacons started giving me more responses to say or to hold the censer more or stuff like that just because I'm his son. So every time they would do that, he'd take the mic from my hand, give it to someone older, or the censer from my hand and give it to someone older because as a 6-year-old, I can't even reach the altar. So I remember after liturgy finished, he stood in front of the whole congregation and he said, anyone that shows anyone in my family partiality or try to favor them just because they're my family, they're going to have to deal with me. And my dad was the person that when he said that, yeah, he was funny. Yeah, he used to have fun. He was laid back. But the moment he was very serious about something, you were going to have a very interesting conversation with him. So that ended a lot of it. So it wasn't as bad as I would say as most other priest kids that I've talked to about. But there was still that pressure of like, you're under the microscope of the concept of, oh, you can't do this because you're Abuna's son. Not because you're a Christian. It's because you're Abuna's son, you can't be doing this. So, I mean, some of like the major pressure, as I said, was that you're under the microscope. Everyone's watching your every move. But I will say this again, because my parents had that boundary, it wasn't as bad. And as I got older, it died down to now where I think honestly believe just everyone just treats me for who I am, not just because I'm a priest kid.
Yeah, I've always been interested because I've always seen, priest kids and the stigma behind them that, they're always in favor. They're always, have the upper hand in things. And it's like you, I really like the point you made about how people say you can't do this because you're Abuna's son, not because you're a Christian. Like it has nothing to do with the fact that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And I think that's very dangerous as a mindset to have as a congregation, to look at someone just because of who their family is or just because of who their parents are and have a different set of requirements for them when we all share one father. So I find it's a very good point you made, honestly. Like, I never really thought about it like that, but it is a very good, I think a point we need to make. It's like everyone is held to the same standard. Everyone's held to that same order of the faith. So my next question for you is, talk to me about your dad. Talk to me about his legacy here in Nashville and kind of the things he did and, why he's so revered here.
So I kind of will start from the beginning because I honestly see that his life was God guiding his life until he passed away. So he was born in Alexandria in 1969 and he graduated from Alexandria University as an architect. And the way he actually came to the States was a very interesting story. So he lived in Kuwait for about 6 months where he got a job there. And him and my mom were engaged at that point. And then his friend that currently lives in North Carolina wanted to immigrate to the United States. And my dad didn't want to at all. He's like, I have a stable job here. My life's good. I don't see the point of moving. So his friend, behind his back, signed his name up for the lottery, both of their names. And my dad ended up getting it, and his friend that wanted it didn't get it at first. He got it later on. So he was put in a position where neither him or my mom want to move, but the way it came, it's not like he ran after it or asked for it. It's as if God is the one that sent it. So they both prayed together, and they asked each of their parents, and like both sides of the family said, if it's God's will, no matter what happens, it's gonna happen. He's gonna guide you through it. So they made the decision that he's just gonna come here to the United States, and he's gonna wait a month. If he can't work with his degree, he's coming back to Egypt. If he does, we'll see where God takes it from there. So he had a cousin that lived in Jersey, so he went there first. And so far there was nothing. But one of his college friends lived in Houston, Texas, and he told him, "Hey, like I'm here. Let's catch up or whatever." And then he told him, "Are you looking for a job?" So he told him, "Yeah." He's like, "There's someone that just left our company, and there's an opening. Why don't you come and interview?" But he told me, he's like, "I don't have my degree from here." He's like, "I don't either." But there was a program called AutoCAD where they turn all sketches or all that stuff into 3D buildings. And in Egypt, they required any architect to graduate, they had to know how to use it. In the States, they didn't require that. So that trumped anyone else because he knew how to work that. So he came and interviewed in Houston, and he got the job. So the rest is history. About a year and a half later, him and my mom got married, and they moved here. And then 2 years after they got married in 98. In 2000, he was ordained a priest. And even that's a story of how God just works through everyone. So in 99, I believe, His Eminence Metropolitan Yusuf asked him to be a priest. And when we spoke to Sayyidina about it, he said the reason why he thought of him to become a priest, at that time, he was the youngest priest to be ordained in the diocese. He was 31 years old when he got ordained. And he was the first person that Sayyidina met in the States that he ordained, not someone that he had known from Egypt or he met when he was serving as a priest here. So he says the reason why he thought of him was he was sitting in St. Mary's Church in Houston, the old church, and there was a speaker in the office, and he could hear someone praying tasbihah, but the way he was praying it was just very spiritual. It was very different. He'd never heard something like that here in the States before. And the reason behind that is my dad was taught tasbihah by a monk from Dir al-Baramus in Egypt. So he had the whole tasbihah memorized in Coptic. So for him, tasbihah was his life. So Sayyidina asked the priest over there, like, who is that? And he told him, my dad's name was Ashraf before. He told him, he's a good servant. So he had him in his mind. So when he got married, he waited about a year, and after praying he was comfortable, he approached him. But both my parents were very hesitant. It's a huge responsibility, obviously. He has to answer to God. He has a whole congregation behind him. He still has his family that he has to balance in between. So after prayer, he felt comfortable, and he felt like this was what God was calling him to. But my mom was still having a hard time accepting and saying yes. So when I was born with a lot of complications, and they didn't know what was going to happen to me. And I ended up staying in the hospital for a week. And they said if it doesn't get better, I would have to see a specialist. So Sayyidina came to visit, not knowing anything, not knowing that I'm sick or I have any problems. And he asked to see me. So again, not knowing anything, he walked in, prayed the litany of the sick on me, and within a day and a half, I was out of the hospital completely fine. So my mom took that as, that's God telling her, I want him for this service, don't worry, I'll protect you. And in August 27th in 2000, His Holiness Pope Shenouda III of blessed memory was consecrating St. Mina's here, and he ordained him a priest ever since then. And he started serving in St. Mina for 3 years. And to describe his service, he was a servant. He was a faithful and honest servant. He saw priesthood not as a responsibility, not as an honor or authority, but he saw it as a servant. He understood that his job is to wash the people's feet. And his care about everyone was just beyond words. I remember someone was telling me that in St. Mina's gym, they used to have a piano that they had got from the old church when they bought it. So he used to take confessions in the gym sometimes, or in the church. So when he would take confessions in the gym, he used to tell that person that played piano, whenever I start taking confessions, go stand on the other side with the piano, and I want you to start playing instrumental music for Coptic hymns. So he didn't understand like why he wants him to do that, but he was like, okay. So he did that for a few times, and then after a while he went to Abuna and he was like, Abuna, why are you making me do this? It doesn't make sense. Like, I've never seen a priest have music playing in the background for confession. So he told him, if you think about it, when someone's coming to confess, they're burdened. They have 300 different thoughts going in their mind. They're worried about how God's seeing them. They're worried of how Abun is going to judge them, or if Abun is going to judge them in general. They're worried if God's going to forgive them. They're worried if there's hope. So he said, if you study music, music calms down the soul. And even in the Old Testament, we read that when Saul used to have an evil spirit come on him, he would call David to come play the harp and say the Psalms for him. So he told him, music in general calms a spirit down. And Coptic music, the way it was made for the soul. It wasn't made for the body. It was made to help the soul feel closer to God. So when you mix those two things together, the person is going to come into confession, his soul is going to be at ease. He's going to calm down. He's going to be able to open up his heart and talk to me more. And that's what I want. And like he used to say, I see confession not just as a sacrament. It is a sacrament, of course, but it's more of like a therapy session where your soul is sick with sin, just like all our souls are sick with sin. And you're coming to the true physician, who is our Lord Jesus Christ, represented in the priest. And he's here to help you get better. So he cared about every single soul. Even when he got sick later on, he was known to be like, he would be discharged from the hospital, and then he'd hear someone's in the hospital, and he'd walk over when he could barely walk and go visit that person in the hospital. So his legacy is known here. He's remembered up until now, even though it's been 13 years, because he wasn't just a normal priest. He was a father. He treated everyone like he was their child, and everyone treated him like they were his father. Even when he passed away, a lot of parishioners even said, we can't find a father like him. We can't find a father of confession like him. He just had this standard for us that we can't find it in anyone else. So
that's a beautiful story. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think there's a lot of points in this story where, like you said, like you see God working and calling out his people. And I just wanted to like ask you, you lost your father at such a young age, and so did, the entire community. So how was that growing up, through the rest of middle school and high school, and then into college and now, like how has that affected your life?
So I would definitely say I would not be the same person that I am right now if that didn't happen. So obviously at first it was very hard to accept at 10 years old losing your father, and I was very close to him. Like I wasn't a mama's boy. I was more with my dad and everything. So it was hard, but again, just like God takes care of everyone, he took care of me. And he showed me over the years of why this was the best for me, why this was the best for him, where honestly, just looking at his life at the age of 41, he was ready to go. Like people spend decades well into their 80s or 90s, and people will say like they're not ready to meet God. He at 41 years old was ready. So it made me more responsible. It made me more trustworthy. Like I take responsibilities very seriously more. But I will say a story that like the way I was able to reconcile it is that the way that the church views death, it's not death, it's not the end, it's the beginning. That's why we say there's no death for your servants but a departure. And God and even my father showed me that he's still connected with me even though he's not here in the body. And a funny story about it is, I remember when I was 14 maybe, there was a servant that used to live beside us that used to take me with him to Sunday school. And I remember one day my mom told me like, it's okay, tell him I'll take you to church. And then something happened, my mom wasn't able to take me, and it was too late at that point for that servant to come pick me up. So I got upset because I wanted to go to Sunday school, Ashaya Tasbaha. So I started taking a walk around my neighborhood, and once I like clicked on my phone, it was like a sermon or a liturgy for him. And in my mind, I was like, if you were here, you would have taken me to church. And I was upset at him. And I didn't even finish the thought in my head, and my phone started ringing, and it was that servant that usually picks me up, and he told me, do you still need a ride to church? I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, I forgot something at home that I need to go get ready. I'm coming to pick you up right now. Where like, I didn't even finish the thought. And like, I remember just standing there, and I was like, okay, I get it. You're here. So like, to answer that question, I would say it was a journey that God took me on, and I'm glad that he took me on. Obviously at that time I wasn't happy, but now 13 years later, I can say that truly God does care for everyone, and what he did truly helped me and benefited me in a way I can't even describe. And I definitely would not be the person that I am today. And even though he's gone in the body, he's here with us in the spirit. There are countless stories that I can say where not just me, but even the congregation here will say, we were thinking about him, or we asked for his intercessions about something and it miraculously happened. So yeah, I would say like God always cares for everyone. He definitely has a plan that's greater than our minds, even if we don't understand it. And even though death might seem like the end here on earth, it's the beginning of eternity. And we're still connected with all those that we passed away. So their connection with us is even stronger now after they pass away.
Yeah, and I think your point about how death is just the beginning, it's like the next step into eternity, like you said, I think it's always important to have that goal in mind, to always understand, that the end goal of everything we do is a union with God on the last day. That's the entire purpose of every single thing we do. And I think if we make that the point of every single thing we do, then we will achieve that, like your dad did. It's a beautiful story, honestly. I'm honestly just like in shock. I don't know what to say. But I would like to know more a little bit about the community in Nashville and how, he was an integral part in developing it. And obviously from even the time when he passed away till now, I mean, it's night and day. There's a complete, it's a huge growth. So what has that been like being being here this entire time throughout this growth in this community and kind of seeing it all? Like, what has that been like? Kind of growing up through that.
It's definitely been interesting to see Nashville to where it was a very small city. We had one church to where now I think we're at 15 churches, maybe 3 communities in the greater Nashville area. But again, just like we're talking, the way God plans things it's beyond our thoughts. It's beyond the way we can think. So when my dad first got ordained here in 2000, it was just St. Mina's. It was Father Boutros, and he was ordained to help him because the congregation had grew to 450 families. And within 3 years or 2.5 years, the congregation had grew immensely that St. Mina couldn't hold everyone anymore. So at that point, Sayyidina asked him to open up St. Pishoy. And the way, like geographically looking, most churches in Nashville are like 15 minutes apart. It's not that far. But where St. Mina was a little further than the area that we're here at in St. Pishoy. The area that we're in is called Antioch. And at that point, Antioch started booming, and a lot of the Coptic community started moving here. So it made sense to open up a church in Antioch. So on July 6, 2000 was the first liturgy for St. Bishoy, and we rented a church that's like 5 minutes away from here. And we found this piece of land at the end of 2003, and we started building a small church that's at the end over here. And we actually built it ourselves because at that point we didn't have much resources. So all the youth, with my dad, of course, and everyone else, they gathered and we built the church. And then as time went on, we had the dream of building a church built in the Coptic style. And the land that we're on is 6 acres. And a lot of people used to tell him, why don't we build the church more inside where no one can see us? So my dad's vision was, the reason why he wanted the church to be built on the street was, the Coptic church is not just for Coptic people. It's not just for Egyptians. The Coptic church is for everyone. He's like, when someone sees the way our church is built, it's different. It's not like any other church you see. So he's like, the point is, I want them to see this church on the street, and I want them to ask, what is this church? What is this building? And I want them to come in and ask us, what is this church? And at that point, that's how we can start evangelizing the Coptic church to everyone else. So in 2003, that's what we started. And unfortunately, he didn't live to see this church. But again, to show how much he still works in the community and works in the church, we were having a hard time getting the permit to build this church. But on November 2nd, the day of his departure, 2012, 2 years after he passed away, the contractor sent Father Pavli a message telling him, are you sitting down? He's like, yeah, I'm sitting down. Why? He's like, I have the permit in my hand. He's like, what? He was like, I have the permit in my hand. He's like, I have no idea how we got the permit today. He was like, it was impossible. But he was like, looks like there's someone looking out for you up there. So it was a day where we realized, like, not just that, like, God is blessing this project of us building this church, but just that Father Mina, even though he passed away, and this was his dream to build this church, he's fulfilling his dream just up there in a different way. And even through building the church and everything else, you could see that like he was working with us. Even till this day in service, when we face problems or anything, we can still feel him with us. And then to see how Nashville grew, when my dad passed away in 2010, we were only 4 churches. It was St. Mina, St. Pishoy, St. Mark, and St. Mary's. Now, like I said, I think we're almost at 15 churches, to where the congregation has doubled. The church is not just the small church that we used to have over there. St. Pishoy is one of the biggest churches, if not the biggest church in Nashville. It holds so much of the services that we have. We've opened up a nonprofit clinic that we treat people for free here. We have services almost every single day of the week. In the summer, the church is open almost 24/7. And every other church in Nashville has similar things, to where the church is always active. The youth are very involved in the church. Father Felixinus of Moses, the vicar for our region, he started something about a year ago, to where once a month we meet in a church and all the Nashville youth just pray tasbih together. And it's one of the most beautiful tasbihs, because you just see everyone from all these 15 churches just showing up middle of the week to pray together. No one's looking for anything. All we do is literally we just pray together. So I will say that the seed that Abuna Boutros and my dad planted was the seed of prayer. Both of them were men of prayer. Even till this day, if you pray with Abuna Boutros, you can sense this man is truly a man of prayer. And my dad was the same way. So that seed of prayer that was planted, I believe, is what helped the community here grow. That's why we have so many churches. That's why if you walk into any church in Nashville, you can tell the congregation is truly praying from their hearts. They throw everything at God. It's not that they're relying on themselves or their authority or their power or their money. It's on God. And honestly, I believe that's the best seed that could have been planted by both of them to help this community grow like it did. And without that prayer, I don't think we would be where we are today.
Yeah, and I really want to harp on the point you made about how in this community, everything there's a different level of spirituality compared to many Coptic communities around. I've been to visited a lot of different Coptic communities, especially recently. And like this morning, I prayed liturgy at Archangel Michael, and it's just different. There's something different about it. It's not normal. There's a level of spirituality that you can almost just feel when you walk into the church. Even we were just looking at the church here like a couple minutes ago. Like you just walk in and you feel it. There's something more to it, more about it.
Yeah. I actually remember Father Nathaniel the first time he came here. It was a few months after he got ordained, and we brought him here for like a spiritual day over like 2 days over here. And he prayed a liturgy on Saturday with us. And I remember speaking with him after, and he was like, "Your church is different." I was like, "What do you mean when that's different?" He's like, "The way you guys were praying the hymns, it's like you're throwing your whole heart into it." He was like, "Today when I was going around in the rounds of incense, the amount of papers I got from people, I've never gotten this amount of papers for to put on the altar from people that much." If I told him, I was like, "This is a Saturday liturgy. If you come on Saturday, what's going to happen?" But he was like, "No," he's like, "You guys truly have the spirituality here in Nashville I've never seen anywhere else." So he's like, "Please keep it. Don't change it."
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like Abuna Nate's from Atlanta, so we share a community like that, and it is different. And I think that, like you said, it comes from that seed of prayer that was planted by Abuna Boutros and your father Abuna Mina. But I also would like to know this community, because there's a lot of Coptic people in Nashville. How does that kind of shape the city as a whole? And obviously all these churches do a lot of things. How does that kind of shape the city of Nashville and just the community in general?
So I will definitely say the Coptic community is now an integral part of Nashville. I will say, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, there's like a nonprofit hospital here called Salome that treats like immigrants and stuff like that. So they were doing a segment about the communities that they mostly serve. And one of the communities was the Coptic community. And they didn't say Egyptian, they specified the Coptic community. So there is not a spot in Nashville where you'll go now, you won't see a Coptic person. And even in our universities, in our schools, almost every university in Middle Tennessee has an OCCM chapter. A lot of the high schools now have an OCSM chapter. And it's not just that it's Coptic students attending, there are multiple non-Coptic students attending now. And we've even had converts through OCCM that have converted to the Coptic church through that. So I will say that the Coptic church is well known now. Everyone's interested by, even like the university I went to, every year we have a tradition now that OCCM does an iconography night. And every year it's grown not just Coptic students, but there's professors, students, people from administration that come. They just want to learn about icons. They want to learn about the Coptic Church. Whenever, like, I remember whenever we had any bombings or any martyrs that got martyred in Egypt, our professors would email us and tell us our heartfelt condolences to you. We still stand in awe of how the Coptic Church has standed until now and how you guys are still forgiving and show this message. So I say, like, the light of the Coptic Church here in Nashville has shaped Nashville. I don't think Nashville would be the same place that it is now. Not just because of the businesses that the Coptic people have opened up here or the jobs that they hold, or they're a very important part of the community, but also the light that Christ told us to shine. We've shown it in a way that Nashville knows the Coptic Church. Nashville understands the Coptic Church. They want to know more about the Coptic Church. They want to be more like the Coptic Church. And honestly, my prayer is that it grows more and more, and that the Coptic Church's light just shows to everywhere here in Nashville and in the whole diocese, the whole United States. And like we were saying, that seed of prayer, I believe, is what's changing everything, because sometimes they just come to OCCM and they see us praying morning doxologies or praying Agbeya, or when they ask us how long is your Sunday service and we tell them it's 3 hours, they're like, how do you stay 3 hours? I was like, oh, 3 hours is nothing. On Good Friday we stay for 10 hours. They're like, what? You guys are crazy. And then they tell us the zeal that we have, it's unheard of. So I will say it's shaped Nashville in a way that I don't think Nashville would be where it is right now, even from a faith perspective or a secular perspective.
And I'll agree 100% on the OCCM point. You know, being in an OCCM chapter in Atlanta, OCCM is one of the greatest services. I know it's not Nashville specific, but it's one of the greatest services I think the Coptic Church has came up with. It's a great idea. And like you said, like, people from all types of backgrounds come to OCCM events and see what the church is like. And it's like you said, planting that seed, being that light. And I think, like, that starts with, for example, like putting the church on the street, stuff like that. Those little things, those little acts of like showing God and being that light. That is what really can grow the Coptic Church and create it to be something that, like you said, it becomes an integral part of a community, especially somewhere here like Nashville, or hopefully in the future somewhere like Atlanta. But I just one more question for you. I would just like to know, you know, how is it kind of seeing this community grow before your eyes and seeing the youth? What is your advice to them on how to take the legacy that your fathers left behind, you know, your generation left behind, and how to take that and grow with it and to continue to grow this community?
Honestly, just live a true Christian life. I know it sounds very cliche, but Saint Pishoy Coptic has a quote. I can't remember it exactly, but he says, people don't need to hear about Christ. They've heard enough about him. They need to see Christ. And I truly believe if each one of us truly from their hearts tries to act like Christ and be like Christ, have the same morals as Christ, live in the community the same way Christ would have lived in the community, where yes, we're compassionate, we love everyone, but we don't accept what's wrong. Where I think that's like a problem that most people have now, where they can't differentiate between love and standing up for what's wrong. When you love someone, you truly stand up for what's wrong because you care about this person, you care about their salvation. You don't care about here on earth. The earth is going to go away, but what's going to last is our everlasting life. So if we truly stick with Christ and learn from his life and truly try to be a light like him, we're going to see wonders, and Christ is going to work through us in a way that we could never even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And I think that, like, that point you made where, again, like, keep the end in mind. Like, this life means nothing. It's the life that is to come. You know, we remember the life that is to come. So I think that's very important, and I agree with that point. So thank you, David, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the podcast. Really appreciate it. We'll definitely have you sometime again in the future. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and share it. And see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thank you.